So this happened quite a few years ago. I used to work as a senior technician for a large entertainment venue, around 2,000 standing capacity. Most of the time we would have private events etc, but this particular day a very well-known comedian was booked to do an hour at the venue. Before the show I was expected to meet with his tour manager, discuss his needs, set up stuff etc. He arrives and immediately sets the tone. Personally I think they thought they were too big to play our venue, but they clearly didn't know what they got into. Dave, won't use any of your crappy mix. He tours with his own sound system. Sure, when is it getting here? I've got it with me, the manager said in the most condescending tone ever. He proceeded to pull out a self-contained speaker system, no bigger than a suitcase. There was no way it was going to fill the first 2 rows of tables, never mind the rest of the venue, which would be at capacity that night. No problem, I can give you a tile line, so you can use our speakers. That's not acceptable. Dave will only use our speakers and mic. To cut a long story short, I spent about 15 minutes arguing with the guy who was belligerent and refused to acknowledge that his crappy system on its own wouldn't fill the venue, and there was no way I could let them do it without support from us. I explained he would have full control over the sound. My gear was there just to amplify it. I wouldn't need to touch the desk. This still wasn't good enough for him, and he threatened to pull Dave from the show. Edit for clarity, he was very aggressive and condescending. At a few points he tried to claim I didn't know what I was doing, and that I shouldn't be employed by the company as I was clueless, no matter how much I explained the science etc. He tried to scare me into doing what he wanted, by threatening to pull the show. There was no need for this. It was him being stubborn, and trying to pull power, thinking I would back down, and let him cause serious complaints for the venue, because of his poor tech knowledge. He eventually backed down when I told him fine, I'd call the venue manager and explain the situation. I'd get a night off and he wouldn't get paid. Much rather that than hundreds of complaints and refunds. He backed down and we set up for the show. But he was still a jerk and the act was no better. They clearly thought they were better than us and it showed. The act even walked around backstage in his boxers into different people's dressing rooms without knocking etc. Between them they both managed to annoy everyone. I had enough. The tour manager had set up a little sound desk at the side of the stage for him to use for Dave's microphone. He was standing there throughout the show mixing his mic. Where he put himself meant he couldn't hear how it sounded, but could be seen by everyone. My lighting op and I were at the back of the room a few hundred feet away and hatched our plan. The first few minutes of the show were fine until the tour manager moved away from his desk to listen. As he walked away for some strange reason Dave's mic would feedback. He would run back to the desk, try to correct it, but it would solve itself. A couple of minutes later he would walk away, and it would start to get that horrible feedback again. Nothing that the audience would notice too much, but Dave and his tour manager certainly did. The tour manager was puzzled. He couldn't understand why this was happening and Dave was getting more and more irate, glaring at his manager throughout the act. What they didn't know was that I was watching the manager, and every time he stepped away I turned up the high frequencies on my desk causing the feedback. As he got to the desk I would correct it and get rid of the feedback myself. Rinse and repeat. He got so annoyed he came to the back of the venue, barged into our control box, and looked at my desk, which of course was set naturally as we had discussed. Have you touched your desk? No mate, actually I did once. Seemed like you were struggling with feedback, so I took a bit of the top out. He walked away sheepishly back to his desk. About halfway there the mic started feeding back again, this time quite aggressively. He had to run the last 50 foot or so, which only drew more attention to him, especially from Dave the comedian. On his way out the venue I heard the tour manager being chewed out by Dave about how incompetent he was. Few years later I meet Dave at another venue I'm working at. Turns out he's a decent enough guy. Didn't mention the revenge I did on the tour manager, but told him about the gig. Turns out it was one of the last times he used that manager. One of the reasons being how bad that gig was. I had the worst job. I mean, we've all had lousy jobs, but this takes the cake. I was hired on to be the shipping and receiving supervisor for a manufacturer of building supplies. Basically I work in a tar factory. I was promised a whole bunch of things when I hired in, and there were red flags because they were offering me about 40% more than I was making before. For one, I was a salaried employee, so I wasn't paid overtime. Also, no one had been in my position for about 3 months. Anyway, they fly me to nowhere, Arizona for a week to train, and the lady who trains me talks crap about my plant the entire time in there. I show up after training for a week and things are, in a word, grim. Fear behind almost $2 million in shipments, and there is paperwork from deliveries for the past 3 months that haven't been received into the system or filed. It's just stacked in a box. It's their busy season, but manufacturing is only producing about 30% of their daily quotas, so I'm constantly turning trucks away and trying to reschedule. I'm working 14-hour days, 6 days a week, and I never see my wife or kids. And, remember, no overtime. On an hour-by-hour basis, it was a 50% pay cut. I cancel 3 family camping weekends, lose touch with my friends, and my sons cry every day when they see me putting my work boots on. Every day, the operations manager, the most mercurial a-hole I've ever met, who is also in charge of the failing production team that is a reason why I work so late, leaves at 5 o'clock sharp. I'm very frustrated, but I keep getting promises of it'll get better soon. So I stick it out. After about a month and a half, my anniversary is coming up. I beg and I plead, will someone please cover the desk for the evening, so I can leave at a decent hour and have dinner with my wife. I'm assured ahead of time that I can, but the day if, they'll bail and totally screw me over. Fast forward another month, and a last minute emergency that they create means that I have to come in on a Saturday, and a 2-hour commitment becomes all day because I'm stuck on a forklift loading and unloading trucks when the rest of the forklift drivers don't show up, ruining another weekend of family plans. So I've heard it. I turn in my notice, and then the trouble begins. They pitch a fit that I'm leaving, so they shunt me into a corner and have someone else cover my desk. I get bombarded with emails, around 250 a day, second guessing every decision I make, and demanding to know why they're still in the dire situation they've been in. Why hasn't this shipped yet? Because you morons haven't made it yet. Then, the icing on the cake, they're flying someone from another plant in to assist as I transition out. It's the battle axe that trained me, who hates our location and hates me. So I just leave. I send an email and tell them I won't be back. I have a new job already lined up, so I'm updating all the job sites with my new information, and one of the sites asks me to write a review of my time at the employer from hell. So I do. I write a brutal, scathing, incredibly honest and documentable, I saved copies of everything, review that makes its way up to corporate. It's so bad that they start harassing me to remove it. I won't. They try to pay the employees still there to write positive reviews to offset mine. So I post on my blog, which has great search engine cred, a similar review with details about the company, the names of the idiot managers, and contact info if candidates want to know more. It's a top page rank if you Google the company, so they can't silence it. Then they try to dick around my retirement and benefits. In the US, you get insurance for the rest of the month after you leave the employer. I've had 3 people reach out since I posted. Remember all the documentation I saved? Yeah. I called OSHA, the EPA, and Homeland Security. They don't maintain their machines or forklifts. They don't dispose of waste properly, and they don't secure the aluminum paste according to regulations. So now they're dealing with a half dozen agencies with acronyms, and they still can't find anyone to sit in my old desk. All I wanted was to go home on my anniversary. I know this is long. I feel like it's worth it though. I'm not an English teacher, sorry for my poor grammar, I'm just a boyfriend. My so worked at a private school in his career, also known as a Hagwin. Hagwin teach all kinds of subjects and this particular one taught English. They would hire native English teachers from around the world to come to Korea and teach English. Although I have never taught English in Korea, I've been in Korea long enough to be very familiar with the laws, practices, and heard numerous horror stories. I also am good friends with a Korean who is a lawyer that specializes in business disputes. So I met my girlfriend. She was on her second contract in Korea at a new school as the first school she worked at the owner retired and shut it all down. That was actually a pretty positive experience. He always paid on time. When he informed everyone he was shutting down the school, he'd of course pay out everything agreed upon in the contracts, but also any unused vacation time, sick time, plus he would double that year's bonus as thank you. My girlfriend told him in her contract she had a free flight home at end of contract, but didn't plan on using it, so the owner of her first school told her that's fine, he'll just pay her an extra $1,000 as that is what the flight would cost anyway. So my girlfriend found a second school to work at after her first school shut down due to retirement of the owner. However, her second school had some warning signs that I was concerned about. 3 foreign teachers, or LA, on their first year contracts. Typically if a school is a good, you'll get a few teachers who are willing to sign on to second, third etc year contracts. Not the case, which I felt was odd, especially for a school that had been around 4 years. The school had a pretty low student population count, just under 100. I've always heard you want about 50 students per teacher for cash flow-etic reasons, unless you're a high-end school. Also apparently payday was supposed to be between the 10th and 15th, they said, in case of holiday or weekend. Oh well, not my business. This was still very early in our relationship. 2 months into our relationship, my girlfriend is annoyed. I find out that her school has only paid half her salary and will be paying the other half in 1 week. This was a massive red sign to me. I gave my girlfriend advice what to do at this point. She ignored me and said they are just having a little cash flow issue, some students haven't paid on time, okay whatever. 2 months later we get invited to a dinner hosted by the owners, a husband and wife. I got off work early and headed on over. Red sign number 2. Both husband and wife drove very nice cars. The wife had a Tesla and the husband had a very nice BMW 5 Series. Off we go to dinner. I get to dinner. My goal is learn as much about my girlfriend's school owners as possible, so I jump into pleasant conversation. More red signs to follow. They have 3 kids, 2 young ones, and 1 older one. The 2 young one attends numerous hagwons for various things. This is expensive, and their oldest is attending college in America, also expensive. They live in the rich part of the town, in a very large apartment, which I was able to find out is financed, aka high payments. They are about to start a new marketing campaign to get more students, as numerous students have dropped out lately. They know they don't have the student population to maintain what they need to maintain. Red signs are going off in my head like this place is heading straight for the effing cliff and everyone needs to jump ship now. Not enough students. Owners have a ton of bills. They won't be staying in business long. Again, not really my place to say anything at this point, but I took a mental note. Next month girlfriend pays late again. Let's just say she kept telling me to mind my own business each time I tried to give her advice. This went on like this for 3 months. And finally, she went an entire month without getting her full salary. She got about a 13. Final red sign. Girlfriend comes over to a letter on her door of her apartment for eviction. You see, in Korea it's common for the school to pay the rent and provide housing. Apparently they haven't been paying rent. Girlfriend is mad. She's broke and about to become homeless. The time for action is now. Remember when I said I knew what to do? ProRevenge starts here. I had her check her national pension, tax records, and healthcare information, all of which are legal requirements for her to maintain her visa. Even though her school hasn't paid those things for months, she's required to pay them. I'm fuming pissed. This school is royally effing over my girlfriend and that's not cool. My girlfriend is distraught cause she's a very prideful woman that now has to ask her boyfriend, that's me, for help. I pull into the savings and pay up all her requirements and set up regular monthly payments to ensure that even if her school doesn't pay, which they haven't, she can maintain her visa. I then ask her a favor. I want to sit down with her co-teachers. Experience has taught me she's not the only one getting fed over. However, do you know what the beautiful thing about this is? You see, the Korean gov is sick and tired of schools bringing over foreign teachers and effing them over. In the past, those teachers who have gotten fed up have gone crawling to their respective embassies, oftentimes homeless, penniless, with nowhere to turn, because their employer didn't have the resources to meet their contractual obligations, and many schools were getting shut down, especially on the third compliant. I tell all her co-teachers to keep going to work. They have to maintain their visas, and I would get back with them in a day or so. I also am good friends with a Korean who is a lawyer that specializes in business disputes. Remember that part? This lawyer and I go way back. I've known him for a better part of a decade. He helped me navigate my divorce. I gave him a couch to sleep on when he was going through his divorce. I once loaned him money. He paid me back, and we both really liked helping each other out. Now I'll spoil the fun for you. No, this lawyer, my friend, is not going be suing the school, but so I called up my friend and said, hey, I wanna go drink some soju and talk to you about something and maybe hit you up for a favor. He goes, sure thing. We go to our favorite BBQ place, start pounding back the soju as I explain to him the situation. He's getting madder and madder. He's upset because he feels like this is giving those foreigners a bad view on his country, and he hates Koreans that make Korea look bad. And I ask him to help file claims with the labor board, with the goal of getting them paid, getting them a letter of release so they can switch to D10 visas and find a better school or leave Korea altogether if they choose, getting the school shut down. Now my friend wouldn't be suing the school as a government appointed lawyer would be, since this is a labor board issue. He really doesn't need to do much. However, when a Korean lawyer who specializes in business law calls a labor board to file a complaint about a breach of contract with her English teacher against a Hagwon, that carries more weight than if the teacher goes through it by themselves. Also, I feel like it helps the communication and eliminated potential language disputes. This would be compounded by the fact if each of those teachers filed separate cases against the same school a few days apart. He agrees to help. Strike 1. Girlfriend goes up first. My friend sits down with her, collects what evidence she has, calls the labor board. Complaint 1 filled. Bam. Girlfriend goes to school. Her boss is pissed. Her boss approaches her and asks, how can you betray me? My girlfriend said, pay me my money. Boss asks, how can you do this? Girlfriend said she smiled and said, this is just the start. Strike 2. Strike 1 is still underway with the labor board coming down the necks of the Hagwon owners demanding payment, demanding to know my girlfriend hasn't been paid. Friend calls the labor board, same case manager. He files case number 2 against the school. Next day my girlfriend and strike 2 teacher is called into a meeting with her owner and husband. They want to work out a payment plan and give them a letter of release. Girlfriend says full payment in full of all money owed plus bonus for completion of contract prorated for months completed or no deal. The owner tells her that's not possible. Girlfriend said that's fine, full payment or no deal. Strike 2.5. My friend finds out what the Hagwon owners tried to do. He advises my girlfriend and her co-teachers, if that happens again, do not engage in any negotiations. Hand them his business card over and tell them if they have a settlement offer they can call their lawyer. He gives business cards to all teachers. Strike 3. Bam. Wham. Open a can of worms, folks, we are here. Co-teacher 3 goes to my friend. He calls the labor board. Guess what? Same case manager has gotten 3 valid labor disputes over breach of contract from the same school, all in a matter of 2 weeks. This school is now not only a liability to its employees, but the Korean govt. The hits land. Labor board apparently called the school, demands that all salaries, pension payments, taxes, health insurance premiums, and rent will be paid in full within 10 days, or the education license and business license will be revoked, and the school's assets will be seized and sold to pay the teachers what they are due. In addition, creditors who are also very likely owed money will be paid. Left hook lands. My girlfriend said the next day at school was crazy. The owners were freaking the F out. Their entire lives was falling apart. They had a govt lawyer so far up there, but they couldn't even sit down. That's when the owners decided they would pull all the teachers into a meeting and work out a settlement. Keep in mind at this point the school owed approximate $20,000 in back wages, healthcare premiums, pension payments, and future liabilities on top of whatever rent was due for all their apartments, which by this point were all under separate eviction proceedings. The owners offered each one of them $1,500 in cash that day if they would be willing to drop the labor dispute. Each one of the teachers pulled out my friend's business card and said any settlement offers should be made to my lawyer. I so wish I could have seen this happen. The owners grab the business cards, look at the teachers, and go, "You have a Korean lawyer?" They answer yes. "You all have the same lawyer?" They answer yes. Can you imagine? Have 3 separate legal issues from 3 separate people and finding out the same lawyer is representing each individual suing you? How that must feel. Will you take the 1.5 now and we work out a payment plan? They all say talk to my lawyer at the same time. They leave the meeting. That night all 4 of us partied. They all felt like complete badasses. Their owners now knew how truly fed they were. We had a pretty good party that night. The end was near. The owners dodge a bullet. For now. The labor board was really pissed. According to my friend who was following up with the labor board, the process to resolve this was being fast tracked and the labor board was deadly serious about shutting this school down if they couldn't pay by the deadline. Apparently the owners were trying to secure a loan to pay the teachers and keep the teachers employed and the school open. They filled for extensions and got some more time. They did pay out partial salaries which helped the teachers get by day. By this point my girlfriend had already been evicted and was living with me and I was supporting her. She was loaning her partial payments to her co-teachers who didn't have the same support. Sir, it is time to drop fat boy. It was a Thursday. My girlfriend had just arrived at work. Yes, she was still legally required to work at a school that wasn't paying her. When shortly after she started, a bunch of Koreans arrived in suits, posted up notices. 15 minutes go by and one of the Korean men in a suit steps inside of the classroom, introduces himself and says all the students are going be getting bused home for today. All the kids are loaded onto the buses and each one given a notice to give to their parents. My girlfriend is instructed to wait until all the students are gone. Process takes about an hour and then my girlfriend is told she is to go home and the labor board will contact her for the next step. They step outside. There is a moving van with a few Korean men waiting around. My girlfriend calls my friend the lawyer who calls the labor board. The school has been foreclosed on. Their assets are going to be seized and sold and the teachers will paid out of the proceeds of the sale. If the school doesn't have enough assets to cover the salaries, payments, the gov will seize any assets of the owners to pay. The teachers now had a judgment and the courts are going collect and pay out on it. The dust settles. 2 months later, one of the co-teachers opted to fly home. My girlfriend and the co-teacher that decided to stay in Korea found much better schools to work at, and my friend calls me all excited and told me he just got off the phone with the labor board. Enough business and personal assets have been seized and sold to pay all the teachers what they are due. Each teacher will have $300 deducted for the lawyer fees. Not for him, he did this all for free, but for the gov lawyer who handled the case behind the scenes. Also, the owners have been permanently barred from ever opening a business, and the education board had barred the owners from operating in any school setting again. No idea what happened to the owners after this, but life goes on. My girlfriend and I took a nice vacation on her back pay and put the rest in the bank. It felt good to win. Thank you for watching. Slap that like button and comment your opinion on these stories below. I'm waiting. Write that comment. Seriously. Have you written it yet? If you don't comment, you make a bunny cry somewhere. You're not that kind of person. I know. Anyways, peace out and catch you tomorrow.